Greetings and welcome to the Homeless Consultant channel. My name is Paul B. I am the Homeless Consultant. In this video I'm going to show you 4 clips which are unusually good at illustrating points I've made in previous videos about the way that when I'm living in a car and it's obvious that I'm homeless, the way that other people around me interact with me, and specifically the way they I guess you would say tend to try to intimidate me. They pay attention to me. Now, it's not just me though. I don't ever want to make it sound, like I'm paranoid or like I feel like they're all out to get me. That isn't the case. If you go back to my early videos, the very first, well, not the trailer, but the first video I made on how not to do business with called homelessness. I said something in there that I don't take lightly. I've thought very careful about it before I said it, and I'm going to say it again right now. In my experience, based on their demonstrated behavior, if I ignore their words, if I ignore the press coverage, if I ignore what they say, and I only look at what they actually do, then I have absolutely no problem whatsoever saying that the state of Minnesota's response to homelessness, you might call it their solution, and in this case I'd call it a final solution to homelessness, is that the state of Minnesota exterminates the homeless. That's their response to it. That's their solution. And the way they do it, there's 2 different ways basically. One is, well, there's 3, but one is to neglect and ignore and intimidate homeless people until they are so frustrated or their survival is so much at stake that they leave the jurisdiction and they become somebody else's problem. That's one way. A second way is just to neglect them completely. Just neglect them until they die. And there are hundreds of homeless people who die in the state of Minnesota each year while the state legislature does absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. And as I said, there's kind of a third way. The third way is to draw homeless people into dependency on the government through, food stamps and welfare and things like that. They're trying to absorb them in there and make them dependent on government. That makes but that's not for the purpose of the homeless. That's for the purpose of maintaining government. It maintains the people. I just want to show you something here. This is kind of amazing. This has been going on almost since I started this. As I'm talking about creepy headlight stalkers, let me show you what's going on right through my driver's side door here. Oh, they moved. Okay, they moved. They had their headlights pointed directly at me. Okay, now where they were, they pulled so that their rear end was right next to that truck you see down at the end. They were parked sideways. These are parking spaces right here, like I'm parked and like that vehicle's parked. That car was parked about where that truck is, but they were right even with my driver's side door here with their headlights pointed straight in at me. And you can see as I grabbed the camera, they finally drove away, but they had been there almost since I started recording this video. This is, I mean, heck, there's another example. This is exactly what this video is meant to illustrate. I don't want to spend all my time using this camera to try to capture what I call headlight stalkers. That's not a good use of my time, but I need to have enough of them to make the point clear that this really does happen. To go back to what I was saying, so the state of Minnesota exterminates the homeless. That's all there is to it. They could care less. For all the times with those shelters recently, never had a legislator even come down and look at what was going on. They could care less. They'll build a football stadium. Like the Roman Empire, one of the things the Roman Empire did, I can't remember which, I believe it was an emperor, not one of the consulates when they were a republic, but I believe it was an emperor who figured out that if you provide entertainment to the masses, they're less likely to have time to talk amongst each other and to rise up against their government. So that's why they had the gladiators and the Colosseums and things like that. And it seems like a bloodbath to us, and it was, but the point of it wasn't to fulfill their bloodlust. The point of it was the government's way of giving them a release for their tensions, the frustration they felt over the problems in their own lives and their own government. And that's why I'm so upset that the state government in Minnesota took all the money they should have been using to save homeless lives, and instead they went and built a football stadium for a privately owned football team. That's exactly what they're doing. They're trying to numb the Minnesota masses down so that they won't pay attention to all the corruption in St. Paul and things like that. I mean, it's just the Roman Empire all over again. But that's a whole nother story. The point of this video is to show you some clips that really illustrate what's going on, and I mean, I'm so sorry I didn't. I try not to move the camera when I'm filming because I can drop it or anything, and the guy left as soon as I grabbed the camera, but he'd been sitting there for, quite several minutes anyway, just pointing his headlights right in my eyes, or on my side. Okay, so I'm losing track of how to speak on this one. I'm going to show you 4 video clips that illustrate this. Now, the first one, let's start that one up right now. This is your typical headlight stalker, just like in my video called Creepy Headlight Stalkers. And I have, a couple dozen videos of these. I could spend all day filming this if I wanted to, but that's not what I got this camera for. I don't want to consume all my disk space with just, hundreds of, but I could, because this happens all the time. And the reason this video is so good is because it's time-lapsed, and since I knew there would be a headlight stalker pulling in at some point, there always is throughout every night, I just started it early, and I left it really stable, and I left it at high resolution, even though that uses a lot of disk space. So in this case, you actually see the person pull in the first place, and you see them when they leave. Now the thing is, I time-lapse this much faster than usual. So what you're seeing in a minute and a half is actually 1.5 hours. So this car sat there for 1.5 hours, and you'll notice that at one point they turned their bright lights on for a little bit. Now again, remember how much this is sped up. The amount of time their bright lights were on was, oh boy, I did it 160 time-lapse. It was a fair amount of time. It doesn't make sense when you're just parked there doing nothing that you would turn your bright lights on. But again, this is one of the best videos I have showing a car that stays there for that long, because a lot of them do. They stay for 1.5 hours or 2 hours. The other thing to notice is that they came off the street, they came into the parking lot, they never went into the gas station, never went into the grocery store, and then they left and went back to the street. So they came in an empty parking lot facing me, more or less. They're about 10 degrees off, with their headlights shining toward me, and left it there forever. Now again, that's not necessarily for my benefit. But the question is, why would you leave your headlights on for 1.5 hours? It's the Minnesota passive-aggressive thing. They just like to intimidate anybody else, whether it's me or someone else. And the fact that I'm a homeless person, though, there are the people who come in here, they seem to be trying to intimidate me specifically to get me out. Again, that's the way Minnesota responds to the homeless. They intimidate, neglect, to inspire you to move out of their jurisdiction and become someone else's problem. That's the point of these more aggressive, the locals who know that there's a homeless guy living in this parking lot, and they don't like that, and they might think it drives down their property values or something like that. And that's why those people tend to be more like suburbanites. They have very, expensive cars. They look like, obviously they have a large house around here. They're suburbanites. Why would you go sit in a parking lot for 1.5 hours or 2 hours? It makes no rational sense unless they're like making a call to, they're having an affair on their spouse and they want to make a phone call or something, or they want to get the homeless guy out of their area because they don't want their property values going down. Now the one you're seeing in that video that I just showed you, they're far away, so it's hard to say if that was for my benefit or if it's just the passive-aggressive thing where whatever they're doing for 1.5 hours, they leave their headlights on because they figure, well, it might bother somebody. Maybe not, no harm, no foul. because that's the way Minnesotans are. It's a very strange state. It's unlike anything I've ever seen before. They like to cause pain and suffering to other people, particularly when they can get away with it anonymously. Um, it's just a really inexplicable, vicious state. I've never seen anything like it, and I've traveled much of the country, and I study the culture and the political climate in every state that I've traveled to. In fact, I had a 10-year project where I did just that, and I can assure you, Minnesota is unlike any other state out there in that regard. Alright, the next video I want to show you is, you know, as I said before with these headlight stalkers, you know, I don't want to waste a lot of video. I have to kind of stop moving because I don't want to shake the camera. It really disrupts me when I put the camera up there to film these people. And you get to a point where it's like, well, why should I film it? It's just another one. You know, same old, same old. And I guess the reason I do it is because I keep thinking, well, maybe this time I'll get a clearer video. Maybe this time they'll do something overtly aggressive. You know, because the windshield causes the video to blur and things like that. In this case, the person had been sitting there for, you know, about 20 minutes, and it was obvious they were going to sit there for a while. You just get a feel for it after a while. They were going to sit there for quite a while, maybe an hour, hour and a half. And so I pulled out the camera, and the interesting thing here is a couple minutes after I pulled out the camera, this pickup truck pulled in and parked not quite blocking the line of sight between me and the headlight stalker, but very, very close. And, you know, within less than 1 minute later, the headlight stalker left. And the thing is, I've seen this before as well. I don't see it that often because it's rare to get a vehicle that gets this close to line of sight. But it does happen. When I have someone who's clearly what I consider a headlight stalker, for whatever reason, whether it's for my benefit or just randomly, I'm going to park here, I'm going to leave my headlights on so that anybody who's over there will get blinded and I can hurt somebody anonymously, which is the way Minnesotans operate. But whenever somebody pulls in and blocks the line of sight, the headlight stalker will leave almost immediately because there's no point to staying anymore. You know, they're thing has been disrupted. And this is just an example of it I happen to catch. I usually don't catch these. In fact, before I really figured out what was going on, unfortunately, if someone would pull into the line of sight, I would turn off the video because I'm like, well, I can't see the stalker anymore. And then I figured out, oh, well, when we do that, the stalker leaves. So again, you know, statistically, this doesn't make any sense. Whatever the explanation for it is. Okay, the next video, I'm going to show you, I have talked about what I have to do to dodge snow plows. When you're homeless, you're stuck in these parking lots and you have to be somewhere. If you have a heavy snow and these snow plows come out, you know, they have a huge parking lot they have to clean out. And there's one car sitting backed in on the edge of one part of the parking lot. And in many cases, these snow plows make a beeline directly for me, for my car. And they'll make a pass right in front of my car, which creates a wall of snow right in front of my car. And it's very intimidating, and it's usually, from what I can tell, it just seems to be they want to punish anyone who leaves a car in their way. So before the person has a chance to move their car, when the plows arrive, they go out there and they bury the car in. It's like, that'll teach you to park in my lot when I have to plow it. Now, they could go do the whole rest of the lot, and while they're doing that, the person with the car in the lot could move their car out of the way, which is exactly what I try to do. Now, because I do that, if it snows, these plows are out all night, overnight. I don't even get to sleep at all those nights because I have to keep moving my car over and over again to get out of the way of these plows. So what I'm going to show you here is at the public library. I was at the public library overnight on a night when it snowed about 2 inches, and there was a little layer of ice beneath it. So I really did not want to drive my car, the bald tires. It is not safe at all to drive on ice, especially in the condition that the car's in. And in fact, well, I'm going to show you an aerial view in a moment for the next clip of what this library looks like. But the point is, the parking lot for the library is somewhat of a boot shape, or you know, Christmas stocking shape. You come in on one side and then it loops around in this boot, and you leave the same way you came in. There's no other entrance or exit. There's one that goes around the building, but that's for employees. It's not something people drive on. So what I'm going to show you here, I'll start it right now. I'm sitting in the parking spot where I always sit at the library because it's the closest to the router, so I get the best internet signal, even though the internet there is horrifying. But if I have to use it, I want the best signal I can get. So I'm sitting there, and the snowplow comes in, and he does a little bit of shuffling over on the far end of the parking lot, which is exactly where he should. It makes sense. He's pushing his way into the lot and getting stuff out of the way. But he almost immediately faces me, sees my car, and he turns and comes in, and instead of working over there, he comes right next to my car. And you can see him in the background here, how aggressive he is. He's moving very fast, revving his engine. He's very aggressive. And what he's doing is he's building a huge wall of snow, like 3 feet, 4 feet high, right behind my car so that I can't back out. Now, again, he can do any part of this parking lot he wants to, but he chose, once he saw my car there, he chose to come over there and build this wall behind my car. So, after I turned off the video, the way I got out of here was I had to move the car back about 3 feet, forward 3 feet, back 3 feet, forward 3 feet, do that back and forth thing while turning the wheel, and then I was able to turn around and loop around the boot and drive through the heavy snow in the area where he should have been plowing in the first place. I had to go around that big wall he had built directly behind my car. So again, you could say it's a coincidence or something, or you could say that this driver's just really dumb, he's not very smart, or something like that, but I have to believe the reason he built that wall of snow, when he started working on the other part of the lot, the part that made sense, because you want to start at the beginning, you might say. You don't want to jump into the middle of a parking lot and just start building a wall of snow for no good reason, in a place where you're going to have to move it later anyway because it's blocking the parking lot where he's building a wall of snow. It doesn't make any rational sense. Maybe he is dumb, I don't know. But I would say no, it's more of an aggressive, intimidating move. And again, it's consistent with that Minnesota passive-aggressive thing. Any opportunity people have to cause pain and suffering and harm to other people, especially anonymously, like behind the wheel of a car, they will do it. So I think that video is a good example. I wish I'd captured, 30 seconds earlier. When he first came in, he was really aggressive, and he sat there like in neutral, revving the engine, just trying to scare the daylights out of me, before he started doing what you're seeing when I was filming, which was still pretty darn aggressive. I think just reckless. He was driving way too fast when there's a sheet of ice underneath. The last video is, wow. The last video, I'm sitting in the very same parking spot as I was with the snowplow at the library. This was a couple days later, so the parking lot was dry at that point. It was about 6 in the morning. Now, the library has the driver's license center as well. The driver's license center opens at 8 in the morning. The library opens at 10. The people who park for the driver's license center tend to park over on the other side near the doors. The people who park at the library tend to park where I was parked at. So again, at 6 in the morning, it was another 4 hours before the library opens. And it was another 2 hours before anything opened. There were no employees there or anything. It's dark. The sun wasn't going to come up for another hour and a half. I had been sleeping in the car. I woke up, I got up and went to check my email, and I was about, 10 minutes into that or something. And a car pulled in to the parking lot, and this happens occasionally throughout the night. Cars will pull in and turn around. There's a book dropping things, but they're usually way over on the other side. This one pulled in very slowly, very creepily, I might add, just kind of driving slow and stopping and moving and stopping and moving. And they came around and they pulled in right next to my car, right next to my passenger side. And I'm going to show you an aerial view of what this parking lot looks like now. And you see the spot, I put a little box there where my car is usually parked, because again, it's the closest that I can tell to the router to get a good internet signal. The only way in and out of that parking lot is in the upper left-hand corner, which is a road which then connects to the kind of a service road, which then connects to the main road. So in other words, to get into this library is not an easy task. It really doesn't make any sense that anybody would be anywhere near this place at 6 in the morning, unless they had a purpose. Now, I had a purpose because I need a place to sleep and I'm checking my internet. The question is, why did this car pull in right next to me? And I'll put another box showing you right where the car parked. They pulled in right next to me, and I mean close. So I look over at who's in the car. And let's do a quiz here. I'm going to give you a quiz. Who do you think was in that car? Was it A, a 3-star general of the U.S. Army? Was it B, an astrophysicist? Was it C, the CEO of a large multinational corporation? Was it D, a Nobel Peace Prize laureate? Who was in this car that pulled in next to me in the dark, 6 in the morning? Or E, was it a carload of low-class gang bangers? The correct answer is E. It was a carload of low-class gang bangers. It is always a carload of low-class gang bangers who pull up right next to my car when I'm parked out in the middle of nowhere. Now, I've mentioned this before, but I've never filmed it, and I've told you why. Because if I tick these people off, that puts me in danger. But the fact is, I'll put it in another video, but I'm at the end of my rope. I am at the end. I'm at the very end. Minnesota's tendency to exterminate the homeless in method number 2, to neglect them to the point where they just die, that's where I'm headed. I'm out of resources. I can't do anymore. I'm trying to put out some last videos, and then that's all I'm going to be able to do. So at this point, I said it doesn't matter. I'm a dead man anyway. The state couldn't care less if I live or die. So I picked up my video camera and I filmed this car. Now, I didn't film the people directly, but I started backing out, and as I was actually hoping to capture, because I want you to see what a carload of gangbangers look like. It is terrifying. These are thugs. These are nasty, mean-looking thugs. They ain't smiling, and they were either here because they saw a car parked out there and they thought they could steal it, and they were surprised when I was in the car, or they thought I was their drug connection. And this is what happens to me all the time. 10 minutes earlier, I was asleep in this car. Those guys would have pulled up right next to me, that close, and I would have been asleep in this car and not even known it. They could have put a bullet in my head. They could have carjacked this thing. They could have done anything they wanted. A dark area that no one has access to. If anyone came in, they would pull in so far away and have to go through all those turns and stop signs that these guys would know the car's coming and they could get out of the way before this other car got in there. I am in extreme danger in that place, and I really wanted to film this one. So I'm going to show you the video now. I put it in gear, I held the camera up, and I filmed as I was backing out. So I didn't capture their actual faces, unfortunately. I just wanted out of there. But you can see I captured it just as I'd moved back about 2 or 3 feet. I put it on their license plate, and then I moved the camera around. I panned the camera around to demonstrate that this whole parking lot is completely empty. And then I held the camera as I drove out of the parking lot, and when you come off the service road, there's a Y. It goes to the library and the license center, or to a Planet Fitness and this at-home store. Huge Walmart-sized parking lot, completely empty. And yet this car decided to pull in right next to my car in this secluded area. I pulled around into the at-home so I was facing this. I got out of the car, and again, I panned to show that everything was empty. I think at that point there might have been 2 employees who were just coming into the at-home store. But there's no excuse for that car pulling right next to me. There is no way to deny the reason that car pulled in right next to me had something to do with me. Whether it's because they wanted to steal my car, they thought it was empty, whether it's because they want to commit violence against the homeless, which happens all the time, or because they thought I might be some kind of a drug connection. It doesn't matter. The point is, they pulled in next to me because of me, and there's no way you can deny it. It makes no rational sense at 6 in the morning, when things don't open for another 2 hours, no cars around, the hardest place to get to, the most secluded, with the least access and exit, for that car to pull in right next to mine unless they had some purpose that involved my car. And this time I filmed it. And you know what? I'm never going to be able to sleep in that parking lot again because of this. Because they saw me filming them. So I've lost that spot for sleeping. I've lost that spot for using the internet at night because now I'm in danger. Those guys know that I filmed their license number. But like I said, I'm at the end of my rope and I'm getting a little more bold with making these videos because it doesn't matter anymore. The state of Minnesota is killing me one way or another. So there you go. There are 4 video clips that I think are, unusually good at demonstrating what I've been trying to say. I have no desire to make a whole bunch of these videos. Like I said, it just eats up disk space, and it's just the same thing over and over and over again. Even what you saw with that car pulling in right next to me happens to me all the time. What do you want me to do? Film a dozen of them? Put myself in danger with a dozen of these gangbangers? There's no point to it. I have more important videos to make, but I did want to make a follow-up to my Creepy Headlight Stalkers video to again illustrate the point and to make it very clear, crystal clear, that this isn't about paranoia, this isn't about speculation. I think I've been very fair and reasonable in my analysis of this. I do not think that most of these creepy headlight stalkers are out to get me specifically. I think they're out to get anybody they can just because they're passive aggressive. But the ones who come very close to me, and just based on other things I've investigated with this, it's pretty clear that some of the locals here leave their homes for a couple hours and they come and pull in, especially in the spots that are right in front of my car, like very close, 30, 40 feet away. They seem to leave their suburban homes, pull in there for 2 hours with their headlights in my eyes. I think that's an intimidation tactic to say, get out of our town. It doesn't make any sense why you would leave a nice big warm 2-story home, because I've followed these people back to their homes just down the street. I don't know why they would pull in here for 2 hours and just shine their headlights in my eyes unless they were worried about their property values or something. Because again, this only happens in parking lots where I'm established as a known homeless person. If I pull into a parking lot just like this one anywhere else for the first time and I park way out in a secluded area, nothing of the kind happens. Nothing. Randomly, but not with the statistical significance of almost all the time, which is what I have in these cases where I'm established somewhere. Alright, so I'm going to leave it at that. The next videos will go back to some very specific topics, and again, I'm trying to get these last videos done if I'm able, but everything has gone wrong. I'm out of resources. I don't want to sound melodramatic, what can I say? I'm preparing to die is what's happening. There's nothing else I can do. I am completely out and nobody's helping me. My computer's dying. Some of the keys don't work on here anymore. I can't even navigate with my keyboard anymore. I can't type. I have nothing left to work with. Making these videos is now 3 times as hard because I can't even use my keyboard on my computer. Anyway, I just wanted to show you those videos. Thank you very much for watching, and please bookmark this, subscribe to the channel, and come back for the remaining videos, because I'm going to try to make them very important and relevant, because they may be the very last things I'm able to do. Thanks for watching.